Hi, everybody. Peter Greenberg here, and happy almost Memorial Day weekend. No, forget that. I can just say happy Memorial Day weekend because so many of you guys got a head start on it, and it's going to get crazy out there. Let me tell you where I'm coming from today. We're from Jaguar Reef here in Belize. I got a head start on Memorial Day weekend as well, not because I needed to get away for vacation. We're actually down here shooting my next in the series of our hidden 1 hour global television specials for PBS. It's called appropriately Hidden Belize. You know what our motto is: no gift shop, no tour buses, no TripAdvisor stickers, unusual experiences and destinations that nobody knows about but are totally accessible to you. So look forward to that in a couple of months on your local PBS stations. We'll have a little bit more about what's coming up on PBS later, but let's go right to the news, of course. And the news is a couple of things this week. Number one, 42.3 million Americans already starting on the road or in the air for the kickoff of the unofficial start of summer. But let's be real, seasonality is gone. Planes have been full all year long anyway. It's just getting crazier now simply because of a couple of things. One, airfares have never been higher, hotel rates are soaring, and so many Americans who are opting to travel at least more than 50 miles from home by car are not doing so because they want to drive anywhere. They're doing it because so many of the big legacy carriers, American, United, and Delta, have either cut back substantially or eliminated the service to so many secondary and tertiary cities that folks are forced to drive just to get to another airport to be able to fly somewhere else. It's a little nasty out there. To give you an idea of how many millions of Americans will be flying, in Orlando alone, right, America's most visited destination these days, between yesterday and a week from yesterday, 1.1 million travelers through the Orlando airport alone. And here's where it gets a little dicey. The air traffic control folks are short-staffed. The FAA has asked the airlines to cut back on their flights. In the Northeast corridor, the airlines have done that. They've dropped about 10% of their number of flights. So what are they doing? They're flying fewer flights on larger planes with more people during peak times. So if you show up at an airport this weekend and it seems like everybody you ever grew up with is at the airport, they probably are. Long lines for everything. Please get to the airport early. That's the easiest piece of advice you could ever get. But for another reason as well, because it's not just staffing shortages, it's longer lines, and it's the connecting flight issue, which was based on pre-pandemic scheduling that didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. When you go online to make a reservation, which, by the way, I'm not a big fan of. I'm a fan of going online to research. I'm not a big fan of going online to actually make the reservation because you don't have a chance to ask the questions that need to be asked. One of the things that you'll see on so many connecting flights are connecting times that are ludicrous, like 33 minutes. This was going on before the pandemic. It's even worse now. Airlines should not be allowed to publish schedules that when they publish them that they already know where every plane is full and you have 33-minute connect times. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to complete the sentence as to not whether it's going to go wrong, but when. We get through this major stress test at U.S. airports and at U.S. airlines, and we learn some lessons from them, and most importantly, that we apply those lessons. A couple of other things that are going on this week. Of course, it's the Justice Department win in federal court against the JetBlue Northeast Alliance. They ruled it basically illegal because of anti-competitive measures that it represented. American and JetBlue may appeal, but it also, what does it foreshadow in terms of the other U.S. Justice case against JetBlue and Spirit for their proposed merger? It's going to be very interesting to see how these antitrust cases go. Watch this space. But for the moment, I'm pretty sure both American and JetBlue will appeal that decision, so it may delay the final blow. But the other Justice Department case against JetBlue and Spirit is proceeding. So hold on to that thought. Okay, so now let's move on to so many other things. Number one, we're looking at a situation now where I was just recently in Montreal for the Virtuoso Symposium. You know Virtuoso, they're the global consortium of luxury travel advisors, and they're a pretty good way, pretty good metric as to where things are going in travel, especially in the high-end market. Their bookings, 91% above, not last year, 2019. Think about that. People willing to spend even more money to get from point A to point B, and in style, we get that part. But what does this mean to everybody else? It means that even if you wanted to fly first class, you can't find a seat. And if you ever wanted that first class upgrade because of all your hard-earned miles, forget about that too. So it's going to have another impact down the road. For the moment, the lack of price sensitivity is wreaking havoc in terms of airfares. The round-trip coach airfare, I checked yesterday from New York to Paris, $2,200 coach. If you want to go business class to London, it's $8,000 and up. Same thing for Paris, same thing for Rome. It's crazy. And we're not even really in summer yet, but it's going to happen. We're hoping that somehow after Labor Day, saner heads may prevail, prices may be stabilized. At the very least, we also know something else. The credit card bills come due. And these are all these credit cards that people went out and got because there were all these mileage bonuses and points and perks at interest rates ranging from 24 to 28%. That's compounded interest. Consumer credit card debt right now is now approaching, it was close to it, now it's approaching $1 trillion. That's all unsecured credit. That scares me. So we'll have to see what happens there. Now, moving right along, let's go down the boards and say hello to some people before we get to some other topics we're going to talk about. Hold on a second. All right. All right, Harriet and Jim are saying hi from Richmond, Virginia. Matthew's saying hi from Syracuse. Evelyn's saying hi from rainy Denver. Meredith is saying hi from Michigan. Rich is going to Beirut for the first time for 8 days in late June. Any recommendations? I love Beirut. I'm going to tell you a funny story. 25 years ago, I took about 25 of my friends, writers, producers, and directors, on what I called I hate to say it, the nervous Jew trip. Why? We did Jordan, we did Israel, and we did Lebanon. And in fact, on one particular day, we had breakfast in Amman, lunch in Jerusalem, and dinner in Beirut. Almost an impossible feat, but we did it. All of my friends thought they were going to be shot and taken hostage. Let me tell you what happened when they got to Beirut. They walked off the plane like they were being taken hostage. And about 10 minutes later, each one of them came to me sort of sheepishly and said, "Can I extend my trip?" That's how amazing Beirut is. You'll never have better food. The Lebanese mezzas are unbelievable. The food is incredible on every Lebanese wine. Of course, in the winter, you can go skiing there. You've got the Mediterranean. There's a reason why they call it the Paris of the Middle East. Look, that terrible explosion in the warehouse about a year and a half ago of the fertilizer was devastating, just devastating. But Beirut still shines in my mind as a great location. And anywhere along the coast there, go to Byblos. You need to go to Byblos if you're going to Beirut. It's probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest known port in the world. And it's just remarkable. So, Rich, I hope you have a great time. All right, let's keep going here. Sue is saying hi from sunny Bellingham. Okay, Sue. Bill saying hi from New Hope, Pennsylvania. Headed to Heidelberg next week. Not bad. You're going before the crazies get there. All right, let's keep going. I'm trying to scroll down here, but it's not really working. Hold on. Give me a second here. It's scrolling back up and it's scrolling back down. And it's doing it very slowly. By the way, while we're waiting for here we go. Here we go. Michelle is saying hello from Tampa. Just got back from our trip to Istanbul and Cappadocia. Loved it. Amazing people and excellent food. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Lorraine is saying loved Belize. The whale sharks at the reef are amazing to be in the water with. And hello from Holland, Michigan. I was actually in the water earlier today on a small island the size of a pitcher's mound. You'll see that in our show, and you'll understand why we call it Hidden Belize. Just an amazing place. You know, what's interesting about Belize is some people think it's Central American, some people think it's Caribbean. It's both. And they have the most amazing ancient Maya sites that you're not realizing they have. And they've only uncovered a small fraction of them in the jungle. And well worth visiting that as well. All right, Camilla's saying hello from Dallas. Alan's saying, do you think Alaska will merge? Are you talking about Alaska Airlines? No. There are very few merger candidates left. You may remember Alaska took over Virgin America. Remember that? That was their last big purchase, and I don't think they're going to go beyond that right now. Randy's saying, welcome from Michigan. You got it. And Raymond's saying, from Bayshore, Long Island, normally at this time of the year, I would be right there with you, Raymond, as you know, but duty calls, we'll get back to the U.S. in about 4 or 5 days. And Birgit says hi too, okay. Now, this is an interesting question from Alan. Will American Airlines get rid of Oasis 737 and the A321neo? No. They need the A321neo because that's what they're using for all their transcon flights now. That's the plane that replaced the 767, for those of us old enough to remember that. As for Oasis 737, it has not been a success. The seating configuration jets. I challenge any of you watching this to do this. If you need to go to the bathroom on the plane, I challenge you to open the door, get in that bathroom, it's so small, and actually wash both hands in the sink at the same time. You cannot do it. Unless you're a member of the cast of Cirque du Soleil, but that's not really why they built that bathroom. Okay, Joyce says, and when to Jamaica? Is it a good idea to go to Club Mobay at the airport in Jamaica to avoid all the long lines once we get to Jamaica while we're waiting for our transport? Have I ever been to Club Mobay? I have. It's okay. It's not the best. You're not living in the lap of luxury there. You're only there for one reason, to kind of chill out while someone else goes and gets your bags and gets you through so you can actually get to your transport. So if you want to do that, go to it. Don't have unrealistic expectations. Okay, Meredith saying, considering a safari in Tanzania, we'll be traveling Delta KLM. No, you'll be traveling KLM. I noticed that we would have a 1 hour and 15 minute stop in Entebbe. The flight number remains the same, so I figure we will stay on the same plane. Do we need? No. The deal is, you'll be fine. You are staying on the same plane. This happens also in Zanzibar. It also happens in Mount Kilimanjaro and Arusha. A lot of planes will just stop there to pick up traffic, and you don't even get off the plane. Okay, you'll be fine. All right. Saludos desde Ecuador. Okay, and Elda, nice to talk to you. Judy wants to know, how many staff do I travel with? Well, if I'm shooting a television show, we have a pretty respectable crew, usually 2 or 3 camera crews, audio, production assistant, of course, my radio producer, my Facebook Live and Instagram and YouTube producer. It takes a village, but we're not showing up with a crew of like 900. When we do a royal tour, for those of you who've seen those shows, that's a different animal altogether. We have a crew of about 45. And the reason for that is because we're traveling with a head of state. We have 4 different camera crews, an additional second unit crew, an additional, all the guys operating drones, all the guys operating GoPros. We don't get a second chance when you're traveling with a sitting head of state. And that's a crazy one. Gail's saying hi from Pennsylvania. Alan says, could AA remove seats on Oasis aircraft? They could, but American Airlines has no financial incentive to remove any seats. If anything, they've crammed in as many seats as they possibly can get in and still get away with it. Other airlines are doing the exact same thing, especially on those 737s. Not my favorite aircraft these days. Okay. Paul says, great airfares to Romania from JFK. My wife and I are seriously thinking about going there. Go there. Do it tomorrow, because as so many of you have experienced, if you want to fly to Paris, London, Rome, Madrid, Romania, and then guess what? Get on a train and get your Eurail pass and see the rest of Europe the way you want to see it without having to mortgage your house. Speaking of that, there's a tax that's been around in London and all UK airports for a while now. It's called the passenger duty tax. It's a terrible, draconian, and insidious tax. And the reason why they can tax us, it's taxation without representation. Last time I heard about that with the British, we had a revolution. Well, here's the deal. That tax can cost you not to go to London or to the United Kingdom. That tax costs you if you're leaving any UK airport to leave that Great Britain. And that can be anywhere from £20 to more than £500, depending on the length of your flight. So here's what you do. If you're going to go to London this summer, or at any time of the year, buy what we call an open jaw ticket, which means you'll fly the US to London, then take the Eurostar to Paris, Amsterdam, or Brussels, avoid the tax altogether, have fun in any one of those three locations. The money you save on the tax will easily pay for your hotel room and a wonderful dinner, and then fly home from there. I do it all the time. Let's keep going here. Alan says, I was reading an article online about Virgin Group getting Virgin America trademark back. Do you think if Virgin Group will create another Virgin America? Well, listen, it's a different culture, as you know. People really swore by Virgin America. They loved it. And the only reason, I'll give you some inside baseball here. The only reason why Alaska, when they merged, quote unquote, with Virgin America, didn't keep the name was because Richard Branson had a deal that was so rich for him in giving them the license to use the word Virgin, it basically eliminated their profit. He was getting something like 7% of the gross. And the only way that merger could have gone through, and for those shareholders in Virgin America to realize any money, was if they changed the name. And that's what they did. That doesn't stop Richard from getting it back. We'll see what happens. Okay. Joy says, I'm going to San Diego, California, September 26th. When's the best time to purchase airfare? Joy didn't tell me where you're flying from. Help me out with that. All right, let's keep going. We'll scroll back up here. By the way, while I'm waiting for my very slow screen here to come back to life, we asked you guys this week an interesting little question. And the question was, what's the one thing you try to avoid when taking a cruise, as well as what do you always do when taking a cruise? And this is what you said. Annie said, avoid the main dining room on sea days and reserve then in the specialty restaurants. Okay. Melissa says, people. I spent the vast majority of the time on my private balcony. Well, I don't know about your cabin, Melissa, but if you spent the vast majority of your time on your private balcony, I would be claustrophobic. I'd be taking hostages. Those private balconies are very tiny. Forget the brochures that show you the lovely couple in their bathrobe having their breakfast and their mimosas on the balcony. You get out on that balcony, you can't move. So you might want to circulate and socialize a little more. Okay. Another Michelle said, I avoid buffets. Buffets are gross. I can't even look at them. What do I always do? Buy my own liquor to have in my cabin. Well, Michelle, I have a little news bulletin for you. Number one, since the pandemic, the cruise lines have completely redone their buffets. They had to under CDC guidelines. Now there are great buffets, but it's a staff person who's going to plate the dish for you. It stops people from overloading, 95 pounds of whatever on their way to their table to eat another 95 pounds. That's the first thing. The second thing you brought up is bring your own liquor. Well, I have to share this with you. There are a number of cruise lines where that's considered a violation of your cruise contract. In fact, some cruise lines actually have a team called the liquor retention team. You know what their job is? To be at the gangway to intercept anyone bringing their own alcohol on board. They take the alcohol, they seize it, they label it with your name, they put it in a locked storeroom, and they return it to you at the end of the cruise. So you've just been lucky so far. Okay. Okay, another person doesn't like buffets. Here we go. Any onboard illness? Well, duh. That was whoever sent that in, not the most brilliant idea there, but I understand it. I avoid the smoky casino. And this is from Michael. And I always plan my island adventures so I can be back to the ship in plenty of time. Everybody should do that. Now, if you're going on a shore excursion organized and charged for by the ship, well, the good news there is they'll hold the ship for you. If you're going off on your own, ship's leaving. So you'll know that. So you're doing the right thing, Michael. Now here's one from Teresa. I stay off cruise ships that hold more than 1,000 passengers. You know what? I get it. I once went on television and a lot of the cruise ship presidents got angry at me and I said, some of these cruise lines or some of these cruise ships are so large they've got a high crime area on board. I was joking, but maybe not. I mean, when you have 8,000 plus people on a cruise ship, that's the size, or actually bigger than most small towns in America that have a police department and a jail. That's a lot of people on one ship and a lot of alcohol and a lot of possibilities. So I hear you. I like the smaller ships, always have. I like cruise ships that look like ocean liners, that don't necessarily look like condominiums that fell over and float. But I mean, I love the smaller ships, whether it's Silver Sea or Seabourn, or even the smaller, the old sea goddesses, some of the Azamara ships, not the big ones. They're the medium-sized ones. And maybe some of them will hold maybe up to 2,000 passengers. But those huge ones, like the Royal Caribbean ships, which are the largest ones in the world, hey, I understand why they're popular. I get it. You know why they're popular? Because it's not about the destinations they're going to. The ships themselves are the destination. I get it. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed my cruising on those ships, but given a choice, I'm right with you, Teresa. I'd like to go to the smaller ships. Catherine says, speaking of shore excursions, we avoid the shore excursions. My husband and I do extensive research about the destinations we're going to, then figure out every detail to do it on our own. It gives us the freedom to make experiences unique for us. You know what? I get that too. But be careful, because in some port cities, when you have more than one cruise line showing up at the same time, this particularly happens in Alaska, as we're speaking now. And for the rest of the summer, when you have 39 ships in the inside passage, you could be in Seward and have 7 ships in. And if that's the case, the ships basically suck up all the infrastructure. And even if you wanted to have an experience on your own, there's no availability for you. So pick and choose carefully. I'll tell you what I like to do, Alaska notwithstanding, is if I'm traveling on a cruise ship and I'm going to a port where we're going to be there for more than 5 minutes, I will call a hotel in that port, probably the best hotel that has a concierge who knows what he or she is talking about, and I'll ask if I can hire a car and a driver for 4 people. Could be even a small van. They'll give me that car and driver. I'll split the cost with another couple on board, and we do our own itinerary. We don't get stuck in the tchotchke shops. And as long as you get back to the ship on time, everybody's happy. And you're splitting the cost. Okay, this is one I hadn't heard of before. Thank you, Allie, for this. Always take magnet hooks. They're great for hanging pretty much anything up on a cruise ship wall. Wow, okay, thanks for that one. Okay, my good pal Vivian says, no stiletto heels during rough seas. Thank you for that, Vivian. Always carry a pair of sequin sneakers to wear under your gown when attending the captain's dinner. Okay. Terry says, loud people on the sun deck. People bring sound systems, turn it up high. And the group is shouting because the music is so high. It's like it's their own private yacht. I hear you, or maybe not. Okay. Now, here's one from Emily, who says, we avoid the casinos and the art auctions.
This week on The Travel Detective, watch some of America's most popular songs, the quintessentially patriotic songs that so many of us grew up singing, actually have a hidden history. We went across America in search of their true meaning, and we'll face the music. That's our cover story.
Plus, fasten your seatbelts for some of the most innovative and downright fun airline safety videos. And then we'll dive in to some of the world's most over-the-top
underwater hotels. I'm Peter Greenberg. All this and more on the next edition of The Travel Detective on PBS. Check your local listing.
I hope you get a chance to watch that on The Travel Detective this season on PBS. Speaking of PBS this season, I'm going to give you a quick little trailer of what's on the episode that's running right now. Okay. Now, one of the things I want you to watch carefully for on this episode is another investigative piece we did on so-called American patriotic songs, and we did their derivation, and the results were quite shocking. Songs that I grew up with, that you grew up singing, maybe we did it in camp or in school, songs like This Land Is Your Land or My Old Kentucky Home, that have a more deep and troubling meaning way beyond what we thought we were singing when we were kids. In some cases, the lyrics were not given to us. In some cases, we only got maybe 1/4 of the full lyrics on that Woody Guthrie song. And in some cases, the lyrics were literally whitewashed. I won't tell you any more, but you got to watch that episode. That's the one that's airing right now on PBS, also available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. So please check your local listings. Okay, back to your questions. We have one from Darla says, or is it Daria? Oh, it's Darla. Never go to art auctions. Here we go again. Always go to an about the ship talk from the ship officers. Okay. Another person says, I rarely take the shore excursions, especially if they just go to the beach. You're right. Okay. And there you have it on those answers. And I hope that was helpful to you. Some other questions that you guys sent in. Molly says, hey, I was just in Belize. Where are you filming in Belize? Answer, everywhere. Here's one from Elizabeth. Delta canceled my flight from Milan to JFK 42 hours before takeoff and said there were no flights for 48 hours. I found Delta flight Rome for JFK, booked 2 of the last seats for $3,000, and Delta refuses to repay. Well, it's in the airline's best interest to accommodate you and to find another way for you to go home. I have no idea who you're talking to at Delta, but did you ask if there was another Italian airport you could fly out of? Or did you just do that one on your own? The minute you go off, on your own, you lose the paper trail that gives you the leg to stand on to get them to either accommodate you on that flight for no additional charge or to basically reimburse your original ticket cost. I'd like to know more of those details, so go ahead and email me, peter@petergreenberg.com. Make sure you send me the confirmation numbers, the ticketing, and of course, who did you speak to at Delta? Did you get their first and last name? Did you get their title? I keep telling you this, folks. If you don't do a good job of reporting, don't come crying after the fact because you haven't basically completed or even created the paper trail you're going to need to give you any standing. Okay, here's one. Boy, have I heard this before, from Diane. I'm flying from Denver to Rome with a 1-hour connection in between our flights in Chicago. If my flights are on time, is this enough time in between flights? The answer is absolutely not. First of all, are you flying on the same airline? If you're flying Denver through Chicago, my guess would be United. I could be wrong. But at the same time, you need to double check that. If you're flying on a foreign carrier out of Chicago, you're going to have to change terminals. And your bags are going to have to change terminals. No 1-hour connect times, folks. Get connections with much longer times. Try 2.5 hours. Okay? Very important for that. And now, you got to do this. It's time for the photo of the week. Here it comes. We want to thank Terry Bielaski. And I love this because I know this photo very well. I know this photo very well because I've been exactly where this photo was taken. We're in the South Island of New Zealand, Milford Sound to be precise. And there it is. The Mad Hatter town of New Zealand. If you're an adventure travel freak, that's where you go. It's bungee jumping time and all sorts of other excursions. Beautiful, beautiful colors, beautiful light. And it's exactly, photographing this was all the way in the distance is the Tasman Sea. I also want to tell you, I have never been on the Tasman Sea where it was calm. I mean, I was on one trip from the North Island to the South Island, and I was on an ocean liner. And it was so rough, a Coast Guard rescue helicopter happened to be traveling above us and took a picture of our ship. You could not see the bow, and the propellers were spinning.